Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Adrian Mason. I am back. It is Wednesday, October 1st. Yes, we are officially in the last quarter of 2014, and I'm going to discuss what have we learned for the first quarter of the 2014 NFL season. That's right, we have officially passed 4 games. Tomorrow is the start of Week 5, so of course I'll have my quick pick for that. Vikings and Packers, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we finished the first quarter of the 2014 NFL season already. A lot of surprises, a lot of not so interesting surprises, or not so shocking surprises. And yeah, so first 4 weeks out of the way, let's talk about what went down in week 4, and then just some, opinionary commentary about, first quarter of 2014. So without further ado, let's look at this list here. I got my handy dandy schedule here of all the week 4 games, and let's see, went 9-4, which I'll post for my next week's picks, which I'll have to do pretty quickly because, of course, I'll be out for this weekend. It's ACL Music Fest weekend, so I'm going to be out and about, busy as can be, having fun, etc. So I'll make sure to get that up as soon as possible. So, having said that, Giants and Redskins, what we learned is that, the Redskins are, everybody was saying that there was no QB controversy, or there was a QB controversy because Kirk Cousins was playing so well, played well against the Jaguars, went wire to wire with the Eagles, and so everybody was thinking that RG3 is pretty much the backup. Kirk Cousins knows that offense. And then the Thursday night game happened, which it seems to be a theme with Thursday night football that, like, teams just get their asses kicked, like, royally on Thursday night football. Because, of course, last week was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and, now, or this past week, it was the Washington Redskins, the victims of the vicious Thursday night football curb stomp. But yeah, Kirk Cousins looked absolutely horrible, and yeah. So what we learned about the Redskins is that they are still a terrible franchise. They're still a terrible team, and South Park went ahead and lit them up last week in their season premiere, and then the next day the Redskins drop a dud. So that South Park curse is real. And what we learned about the Giants is that Eli is starting to get a grasp of that offense with McAdoo, and their tight end, gosh, his name escapes me. My apologies for that. But my gosh, Eli has a new weapon. It's not even a receiver. It's a tight end. And, they are in the thick of things in the NFC East. They're 2-2. They are, tied for, or not tied for, but they're third behind the 3-1 Cowboys and the 3-1 Eagles. But there's still some life left in that Giants franchise. So keep a lookout for that. Packers and Bears. What we learned about the Packers and Bears is that Aaron Rodgers pretty much owns the Chicago Bears. 11-3 all time against the Bears, and it didn't change. He was making some amazing throws. There's obviously, if you look at the highlight reel, there was one that he made a touchdown pass for, where basically he took a shot in the back of his leg and still launched the ball in the air about a good 35, 40 yards into the back of the end zone. It was called back because there was holding, but that throw was absolutely incredible. Aaron Rodgers told everybody to relax. The world isn't ending in Green Bay, and sure enough, true to form, he proved it by basically having his way with the Bears. What we learned about the Bears is that when Jay Cutler turns into Jay Cutler, and by that I mean with those interceptions, yeah, that team is easy to beat. But we also learned that Martellus Bennett is quite possibly a top 5 tight end this year. I wouldn't say overall, but this year in September alone, he's been wreaking havoc in the NFL. But it's just that Jay Cutler has no luck against the Packers. All right, Bills and Texans. What we learned about the Bills is that they made the biggest mistake of drafting E.J. Manuel in the first round of the 2013 NFL Draft. Now, you look at this, ladies and gentlemen. E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith, really those two stand out because they were the highly touted QBs coming out of that class. And Geno Smith has been playing absolutely terrible. E.J. Manuel has played well enough to get benched for Kyle Orton in their next contest. So that should tell you right there alone that the 2013 QB class was absolutely shitty. You look at the 2011 QB class with Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick, Andy Dalton. You look at the 2012 class with Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Nick Foles, lesser extent Tannehill. I mean, the 2013 class was a bad class. of QBs, and it was a bad year for you to be a team that was in desperate need of a quarterback. Buffalo was that desperate. They gambled on EJ Manuel, and they lost big. So, yeah, they picked up Kyle Orton, who everybody thought was retired from, not wanting to play for the Cowboys, and so he got another contract. So now he's getting ready to get his start against the Lions. So, yeah, EJ Manuel looking down Bust Road. Gino will be right there with you soon enough. What we learned about the Texans is what we already knew. J.J. Watt is a beast. He's a monster. He is an absolute phenomenon. And he is, dude is hard to stop. You can't stop him on defense. You can't stop him on offense. I mean, what more? Like, he earned that $100 million contract. He earned it. 9-figure contract. He deserves every penny of it because he is, sorry, Andre Johnson, I have much love and respect for you, but he is the franchise player for the Houston Texans. Next up, we have the Titans and Colts. What we learned about the Titans is, well, what we always learn. They're not bad enough to say that they flat out suck, but they're not good enough to really be a contender. They are the essence of a mediocre team. And of course, they went into that game because Jake Locker was out. They used Charlie Whitehurst. Oops. Then Zach Mettenberger, not ready. So what we learned about the Titans is what we already knew. They're just at best an average team. And what we learned about the Colts is that Andrew Luck is having a great start to this year. I mean, he leads the league in touchdown passes with 13 in 4 games already. And I mean, he's playing lights out. Obviously Dwayne Allen is playing a huge part. Ahmad Bradshaw and the ageless Reggie Wayne still getting it done. And so, for their division, which I want to say just flat out, it is the weakest division in the league. It's easy for them to get another 11-12 win season out of that division, straight up. And the way they're playing, first round bye in the AFC. Panthers and Ravens. What we learned about the Panthers is that, oh, good gosh. Last season, they made their run because of their defense. Their defense, their nasty front seven, was carrying that team to a 12-4 record, NFC South title, number 2 seed. That defense is nowhere to be found. They have gotten steamrolled by back-to-back AFC North teams. The Steelers ran them out of their own house on Sunday Night Football, and then this past Sunday, the Ravens had their way with them. And of course, there was a certain Raven who was salivating at the chance to play his old team, and that is one Steve Smith Sr. And boy, did he show out and embarrass the Panthers and make them realize that they made a huge mistake by letting him walk. And what we learned about the Ravens is that, Steve Smith, he is taking the place of Anquan Boldin in that role of that passionate, fiery, gutty, gritty, aggressive receiver. And that's something that the Ravens have been missing since Bolden left. And so with that, and then, of course, that defense has been stepping up. So the AFC North is looking pretty interesting because now you look, the Bengals, they beat the Steelers. The Bengals beat the Ravens. The Ravens beat the Steelers. And so, the Steelers, and so that AFC North race is going to be really fun to watch from here on out. Next up, Lions and Jets. What we learned about the Lions is that Matthew Stafford is finding weapons outside of Megatron. Megatron was, under the weather, wasn't feeling all that great, but Stafford was still making plays with other receivers and, with his own legs. And, dare say the Lions, the NFC North, and of course, what we learned about them in Week 3 when they just basically dismantled the Packers and held them to just 7 points with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, is that as long as they realize that them playing the way they're playing in the first half of the season, that they need to carry it over to the second half, you're looking at a team that could quite possibly win that division. Green Bay obviously is going to be looking out for revenge the next time they play. It'll be in Lambeau this go round, but right now the Lions are actually playing some of their best ball. What we learned about the Jets is that, I don't know why, I don't know how, but this, how Rex Ryan is still the head coach of that team, this is what's been holding them back. They should have let him go already. I like Rex Ryan. A lot of people don't. Like, defensively, that man is good, but that man cannot coach up an offense for shit. He can't pick offensive coordinators for shit. He's had the likes of Brian Schottenheimer, who the Rams are having to suffer with now. He's had the likes of Tony Sparano, who the Raiders are having to suffer with right now. I'll get to them in a minute. But he's never cultivated an environment where a QB and a receiver for the Jets can actually be a huge part of that offense. He's just more ground and pound and maybe dink and dunk with the QB. And, of course, the Jets with Geno Smith, who I flat out said was not going to be that great at the next level because I've seen him play at West Virginia when they were carving up shitty defenses, and then they played the one team that had a defense, and he got exposed. And now he's at the NFL level getting exposed. So this franchise is a couple steps above Cleveland, but there's a lot of Cleveland Brown curse tendencies with the Jets right now. Just got to say it. Next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Learned about the Bucs is that Glennon should have been the starter. They may have the same record, even if he would have started in Week 1 to now, but they would have been a hell of a lot more competitive had they had just kept Glennon as a starter. But Lovie Smith was in so much in love with Josh McCown coming from Chicago. So, hey, a fellow former Bear with another fellow former Bear, buddy, click, click, boom. That's how that happened. They sucked. And, of course, McCown got hurt in the game against Atlanta, so Glennon stepped up. Glennon stepped up big in the final minute of that fourth quarter. And what we learned is that division, the NFC South, is wide the fuck open because all four teams look like ass. So that's a four-man race. All four teams are in the mix. What we learned about the Steelers is that, just lack of discipline. How Tomlin still, I don't know what they still see in him, but obviously, the front office is hard up about not, going in free agency and picking up big names and really how they draft. I don't know. I really don't understand them. Me being a USC fan and Troy Polamalu, respect what he's done over the years, but what he's doing now is he's a liability. He's a detriment to the Steelers. And just, really that defense let them down. And there's really nothing that really stands out outside of Antonio Brown having a great year, but it could be another one of those meddlesome, middle-of-the-road, miserable seasons for the Steelers. Sorry, Steeler Nation. All right, Dolphins and Raiders. What we learned is that, of course, we all knew the Dolphins were going to beat the Raiders. The Raiders fucking suck. Tannehill said, I do not suck, and I'm going to show you that I don't suck. And he played his best game this season so far to shut people up about him being benched for Matt Moore. What we learned about the Raiders is what we always knew about them. They're a garbage fire, and they finally clipped the head man who was the head coach, Dennis Allen. He's gone. They fired him after they got back from London, which they should have fired him on the plane over the pond outside of London, like USC did Lane Kiffin. But, the Raiders are the Raiders. It's just going to suck. Just win, baby? Nah, not at all. Next up, Jags and Chargers. What we learned about the Jags is that, hey, Blake Bortles, what we saw from him in the preseason, he was doing his thing against the Chargers. Didn't get the W, made a couple mistakes, but hey, he's a rookie, and he played well outside of them taking the L. You got to kind of look out for the Jags, man. They've always, ever since they've been in existence since the 95 season, they've always been that team that just out of nowhere turns into a good team. Then they go into dormancy, then they come back up, then they're down for a while, and then all of a sudden, 1 or 2 seasons, they come back up. I think the Jags, they're close enough on the way. They're close enough, but obviously they gotta understand that the Chad Henne project has to end, and they have to go ahead and turn the keys over to Blake Bortles and let him run that team, let him run that offense, let the youngins get acclimated with the young QB. What we learned about the Chargers is that quite possibly they are the best team in the AFC right now, and I don't say that lightly, but the fact of the matter is they are playing some of their best ball right now. They are playing some amazing ball. And Phillip Rivers, man, what a renaissance he's had ever since Mike McCoy's come into the picture. He's been playing his best ball. Of course, we know they beat the defending champion Seahawks. And, of course, obviously they're having some running back issues. Ryan Matthews is out. Danny Woodhead's gone for the season. So obviously they're having to plug and play a lot of running backs, but you look at the receiving core and what Phillip Rivers is doing with that offense, it's masterful. And they are the class of the AFC, even though the Bengals are undefeated. The Eagles and 49ers. What we learned about the Eagles is that you shut down the run, you turn Nick Foles into a mortal. This team was running up chunks of yardage, chunks of points in the last few games, and then they were blanked offensively. Their special teams is stout. Their defense, getting the pick six off Kaepernick is stout. That's the only reason that they got points. A punt block in the end zone, and Darren Sproles returning a punt back in the pick six. Offensively, they are terrible. LaShawn McCoy, who last season won the rushing title, who I picked up in my fantasy league and won my league. Thank God I didn't pick him up. Last two games, 39 yards rushing off of, 22 carries? 22 carries. It's ridiculous. He only had 17 yards off of 10 carries in this game. So, obviously, they're having some issues with attrition with their offensive line. They're going to get Lane Johnson back off of suspension. They're still going to be without a couple of their starters, mainly Jason Peters. They're all pro tackle. And Kels, I think that's his name. So they're still going to be without a couple of people. They're getting Lane Johnson back. But, I mean, seriously, obviously they're still atop of the NFC East, but they did not look like world beaters in this game. Excuse me. What we learned about the 49ers is that their backs against the wall, they responded. That defense reverted back to the defense that we've all known them to be since Harbaugh took over as head coach in 2011. And they had to be, because the offense was sputtering. Special teams was having issues, but that defense stood up, and they say for the time being, they truly saved their season, because a 1-3 start in that division in the NFC West would have spelled a lot of doom, and they would have had to work some serious magic. But obviously the defense stepped up. Frank Gore, they finally gave him the ball, which they should have been doing, and it paid dividends. So the Niners are still in the thick of it. Falcons and Vikings. What we learned about the Falcons is that they suck on the fucking road. 1-9 in their last, 10 road games. And, of course, they're on the road against the Giants this Sunday, so I think you know where I'm leaning and who I'm picking for that game on Sunday. But, yeah, they got gashed by a rookie QB, and they just got gashed on the ground. Like I said, the NFC South fucking sucks right now. The Falcons suck. The Panthers suck. The Bucs suck. And I'll talk about the next team in the Sunday night game that absolutely sucks. But what we learned about the Vikings is that, given the fact that teams don't have much film on them, Teddy Bridgewater played an absolutely amazing game. Over 300 yards passing. They got the running game going. That offense was dynamic as hell. And they're going to need that going up against a recharged, rejuvenated Packers team with Aaron Rodgers obviously feeling it right now. Sunday night game, New Orleans Saints versus the Dallas Cowboys. What we learned about the Saints is that the Rob Ryan second-year defense curse is upon them. Of course, when Rob Ryan went to Dallas that first year, their defense was great. In the second year, it fell off, and he got fired. He said, I'd have a job within 5 minutes. Boom, the Saints pick him up. The first year on defense with Rob Ryan for the Saints, they were top 5. This year, they are scraping the bottom of the fucking barrel. Rob Ryan, for some reason, can only do one season worth of mastery defensive work, because Tony Romo, DeMarco Murray, they had their way with that defense. And the NFC South, like I said, is garbage water. So that is a wide open race. How is it that the Buccaneers at 1-3 are just a game back? Just a game back from anybody in the NFC South. Ridiculous. What we learned about the Cowboys is that DeMarco Murray healthy, that team will be a contender. That team will compete for the rest of the season, as long as he stays healthy and he does not get hurt, because he is the catalyst. He's driving them. And that offensive line, they look like the Cowboys of the 90s, straight up. That offensive line, they lead the league in rushing. Big surprise? No. When you have an offensive line that can ground and pound, and you have a running back that stays healthy and can get those tough yards, then you have the formula for success. And you gotta tip your hats to that defense. that patchwork defense. Rolando McClain is having a renaissance of sorts. And they got Orlando Scandrick back, who's their best corner. So, yeah. So the NFC East, that's going to be an interesting race yet again. So, finally, we have the Monday night game between the Patriots and Chiefs. And what we learned about the Patriots is that Tom Brady is no longer elite, folks. He is not elite. He is not. And he played like shit. Everybody's going to apologize for him by saying, oh, it was the offensive line and his receiver. He has a terrible receiving core and out of sync and things like that. But I'm going to tell you this straight up. Pro Football Focus. There was a writer for PFF that talked about Tom Brady before the season started and saying that he was regressing. He's not a top 5 QB. And, of course, everybody went at that man's head. But then you watch Tom Brady play against the Chiefs, that man was right. And he proved it even more. And I'll link it when I post this. But what we learned about the Chiefs, man, is that two-headed monster of Nile Davis and Jamal Charles, man, and you have Alex Smith, who's smart with the ball. He's not going to make He's not going to make big mistakes. He might take some sacks every now and then, but he's a smart QB. And so you have a smart QB with an offense that has a power running back and a shifty top 5 running back in Jamal Charles and Travis Kelce, their tight end, stepping up. Things aren't looking too bad for the Chiefs. Week 1, they lost their best two of their best defensive players, and you would think the world was going to end, especially after week 1 when they got curb stomped by the Titans. But they're still in it. And so, first quarter review, obviously the huge controversy with the domestic violence issue with Ray Rice, Ray McDonald, and Jonathan Dwyer. Oh my gosh, it was just a complete and total mess. And then, of course, the whole Redskins thing with South Park hilariously skewered. But best surprise is obviously the Cowboys. They're 3-1. Their rushing is stout. Their defense is actually competent. The surprise is that there's only 2 undefeated teams in the NFL right now: the Cincinnati Bengals and the Arizona Cardinals. So surprises there. What's not surprising is that the Raiders suck. What is surprising is that the NFC South looks terrible. And obviously there's a hell of a lot more football, 3 more quarters, 12 more games of football left. So, it's anybody's ball game at this point. It's just right now we're just talking about what's going on right now. Those 2 teams that are still undefeated, everything can change. And it always does. It's the NFL. Parity rules, folks. So there you have it. That is my what have we learned for week 4 and a little bit of talking about the first quarter of 2014. Stay tuned. I will have my quick pick post up for the Vikings and Packers. And like I said, when I post this video, I'll post a link about how Tom Brady is not a top 5 QB any longer. So, till then, Stager Mason signing out. Peace.